I think and I was actually chairing a session yesterday about the difference between what we call Generation X and Generation Y in terms of learners. And I think the single most important factor that came out of 4 different presentations, but all carrying out research into that phenomenon, is the fact that you should not make assumptions. And I find that interesting because a couple of years ago we were talking about digital natives as if they were a very identifiable group. You could predict exactly what they were going to do in terms of technology and what their expectations were. And yet now we're seeing from research findings that's not true, that you cannot actually generalise. And in fact, yesterday morning we even saw a very interesting keynote where Bob was talking about the fact that the people who are most using social networks, for example, are in the 30s to 40s. So I think it's all about assumptions. It's all about not making assumptions, being careful to create flexible learning opportunities that suit individuals and take into account the great variety that exists between learning styles, access opportunities, experiences and expectations of learning. I think they're very complementary. I don't think it's a case. Again, in Europe, we often look at the American situation. We say, how come in the States they seem to be able to marry public and private learning institutions in quite a sophisticated and well thought through way? They find complementarity. Whereas here in Europe, we're still slightly nervous about that. And I think that day has ended. I think we were very busy in a project, for example, around virtual schooling. And you can see that there are terrific opportunities for collaboration. And in fact, that divide between public and private is also not such a simple one to think about anymore. We know lots of institutions that are referred to as being private, but in fact they exist purely for altruistic reasons. That doesn't make them any different to a public organisation in the educational field that is provided for by a Ministry of Education, for example. So again, I think it's a case of sophistication, looking at the subtle differences here and matching like with like and looking for complementarity, and particularly in Europe as we are now, where we really have to find complementarity if we're going to be able to provide the kinds of learning opportunities to create a workforce that really will be able for the challenges of the future. This afternoon I'm going to present the Medea Network, which is a network of activities which are building up around the annual Medea Awards, which is an award scheme which aims to recognise excellence in the use of media to support teaching and learning. And the thrust of my presentation is not so much about that network, although I'm very happy to present it and to talk about the different things that we do, the conference, the workshops, the newsletters, all these kinds of things. But it's also to talk more generally about how do you build a network of excellence, a network of interest in a European context, which is not so simple because a lot of the time we're looking at European funded projects which stop and start naturally enough. They come to an end. And so you've got to look at how do you sustain that interest beyond the lifetime of a project in order to be able to create a real community of practice. So I hope I'm going to be able to share some of our experience after 5 years of building that community of practice and what seems to work and also some of the challenges we've faced. I love coming to the Eden Conference every year because apart from anything else I get together with friends and colleagues and people that we're working together in other instances, and it's always a nice opportunity to take stock of the year, to talk about plans for next year and also just to spend some time together, which is always really nice. What I've enjoyed so far from this conference, first of all the setting, it's been absolutely lovely being here in Porto, beautiful place, a beautiful conference venue and really nice support services, so that's been really nice. I've also really enjoyed that Generation X, Generation Y discussion because I think it's moved on from the very simplistic distinctions that we were talking about a couple of years ago. So I think that kind of content has been very interesting. So also I've enjoyed obviously the discussions, the presentations are always very interesting. It's very nice to meet new people and in this atmosphere that's always very easy to do in Eden. And so generally I find it a very interesting conference and very nice to meet lots of people again and to make new friends and hopefully new colleagues to do other things together.